Welcome back to my channel, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Lindsay, and I am the review queen. However, I'm not reviewing anything today. This is October, and I did post a video a few days ago of me making my own blend of pumpkin spice. However, today is when I really get into the paranormal and the spooky stuff, given that it's October, which is spooky season. And while I will review a few things related to Halloween later on this month, it's going to be in combination with me talking about spooky stuff and me playing a ghost hunter version of Oregon Trail, and then go to a location that is abandoned that gives off this creepy vibe every time my son and I go past it here in our village, or actually it's on the outskirts of our village. So I'm going to deviate from my usual reviews this month, but there will be some reviews, but there'll also be a lot of spooky stuff. So today is the long-awaited one that I've been putting off for a while, but you guys know is coming. It's part 2 of my paranormal experiences here in Sweden, particularly this house. There is a part 1, and if you're new to this channel, there's a part 1, and that's when I lived in the last house. And we moved in this house back in 2019. So the other video, part 1, was made in like 2018, I think, or maybe early 2019 before we actually moved here. So yeah, I will say this. While I would say the activity is maybe not as extreme here yet compared to the last house, because at the last house, there were 2 people that actually died in the house. My husband's grandfather, one of them. This house has no records of anybody dying in it. But as you know, if you're into the paranormal, sometimes a haunting can happen if someone is imprinted on an object and they bring the objects inside the house, then stuff can start happening. And also another thing that could happen too is like if you start renovating the house or do some major changes with the house, it could pick up activity. And like I experienced is like when I had my children, that definitely picked up activity, especially in the last house. So yeah. Like the last house, there wasn't much activity in this house initially either. It took a while, which was kind of surprising because I found out, I think last year or the year before, that the original owner, or the husband of the original couple that owned the house, had died like 4 months after we bought the house. Because in Sweden, typically, a lot of people live in houses when they're elderly until they get to a point where they can no longer take care of the house or can no longer take care of themselves. And they usually go to like an elderly home, or what they call here a care home. And usually when you move into an elderly home or a care home in Sweden, you're on the verge of getting out of life. And that's what happened to the husband of the couple that originally owned the house, is that he died 4 months after we moved in. And there's literally a care home or an elderly home that way, not too far. You can actually walk there from here. Actually, you can see it from our balcony. So that's how far away it is. But even then, nothing happened, really. I would say activity maybe started to increase slightly 2 years ago, but it really picked up, I noticed, or what I came to realize when we put solar panels on the house, because I didn't really think of it as being major renovation or anything, but it makes sense. You know, you put something on a house that its spirit didn't have there when they were alive, and unfortunately for the ghosties of the house, and for us, although my husband is not a believer in the paranormal or anything supernatural, we're going to be renovating the house soon, particularly in the bathroom and kitchen, because we have some pipe issues that's causing some minor or major water damage. So they're definitely not going to like that. But, yeah. Well, like I said, it's not on the same level like it was in the last house. And I haven't seen many visuals. I mean, it was the same too in the last house. I didn't see really many visuals. It's my son that's mostly been having the visuals. Now, having said that, I've had seen out of the corner of my eye where I thought was a shadow. Or I would see, like, for example, I'm sitting here right now in our computer room, and one night, about 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks, but 2 months ago, or not even 2 months ago, what the fuck am I talking about? 2 years ago, I saw, like, a shadow. Like, you know, like when someone's behind you and you see a shadow on the computer a little bit, on the rim of the computer, you have the computer screen, and then you have the rimming or framing around it. I don't know what it's called. I'm sorry if I don't know what the name of it is. I saw, like, a shadow on that, and I turned around so quick, because this was, like, at 1 a.m. in the morning. My husband was asleep, my kids were asleep, and the shadow seemed tall, and I thought it was an intruder, so I would turn around with my arms up like this, ready about to fight somebody, but of course there was nobody there. And, I didn't mention this to my son particularly. My daughter's a little bit of a skeptic. I noticed. She's a little bit like her father. But my son's a lot like me, like, where we do believe, and he's had experiences himself. It's funny because my husband says to me, don't tell the kids about the ghosts in the house. And it's like, well, it's kind of hard for me to keep that quiet when our son in particular has a lot of experiences. So it's not me saying anything, it's him experiencing stuff. And I'm beginning to realize that my son does have some sort of psychic ability. A little bit, or at least as an empath like I am. And the spirits are, like, going to him more than going to me. They're, like, kind of passive-aggressive when it comes to me. They keep their distance, and it was the same thing in the last house, too. They kept their distance from me. Minus the time where I had a shadow figure sit over my bed looking at me, and I thought it was my husband, only to figure out as I was reaching up to hug him, the shadow was too big to be him, so I thought it was an intruder and punched at it, and my hand went through nothing. So that was the only time where there was really near interaction with me in that last house as well as in this house. But yeah, I mean, just a week ago, I saw something out of the corner of my eye, actually in this room, and I had been like this at an angle at the computer, and, you know, my peripheral vision, I see towards that way, which there's a window and all this other stuff. But, like, I thought I saw, like, a shadow, like, right here, like someone walking by. And at first I thought it was my son coming to his computer, because my son has a computer right there, and then my daughter has a computer right there, and I have a computer right here. And, I thought it was my son at first. And then I turned around and I realized there was nobody in the room with me, because my son was still in the living room. So that was interesting. And I think that's it as far as seeing shadows. I mean, I did think I saw one when I was brushing my teeth in the downstairs bathroom, like near the door. I thought I saw something block out the light briefly from the hallway, but I wasn't sure if that was anything, you know. Because, like, sometimes when I brush my teeth, I move a lot, so it could have been that. So, there's been a few times where it could be paranormal, but it could also be not paranormal either. And if you guys don't know, because you're new to my channel and you've never been around me when I've talked about paranormal stuff, I do consider myself to have some psychic ability. I don't call myself a psychic, though, because, yeah, it's funny. I'm a believer of the paranormal and psychics in a way, but I approach things skeptically, if that makes sense. So there was one time where it could have been paranormal, but it could have been not paranormal either. Again, it was like 1 a.m. and I heard this very loud bang. Now, I thought it had come up from outside. I'm like, whatever. Oh my god, maybe it's the wind hitting something against the house or something like that, but it wasn't enough to scare me out of investigating it. And my son had heard it too, but he went back to sleep as soon as he heard it. So I go to bed, and the next morning I come up and the cabinet was open. Now, here's the thing about me. I remember going into the kitchen to get my medicine because I have asthma. I take my medicine before I go to bed. And if I would have saw anything open, I would have closed it immediately because I'm like that. I hate when things are left open. It just makes me want to close it. So if I would have saw it that night, I would have closed it. But then it was open in the morning. And the thing is, while my significant other can leave the cupboards open at times, he doesn't usually leave that open. And I know he didn't take anything to drink that morning because there was no cups around. And I'm like, I'm wondering if this is the cupboard. I wonder if the cupboard door slammed open last night. Because I didn't think it came from the kitchen, but it was in the same direction of the kitchen, even though I thought it was outside. So I tried it several times. And then when I slammed it again, when I forcibly opened it up, it did make the sound that I heard at 1 a.m. But here's the interesting tidbit. Oh, and by the way, I had my son hear it too, and he said it sounded exactly like that. But here's the interesting tidbit. When you open it a certain way and it makes that sound, the door goes back on its own. It goes open, but then it almost closes. That didn't happen. There was something that made it open with such force that it made a sound against the wall, but not enough force to make it go back, to nearly close, which is weird. Because when I tried to make that sound, every single time it did almost close. But yet, when I found it, it was completely wide open, near against the wall. So, I mean, yes, it could be that my husband opened it and, got something out and, but there was no glass around either, so that's weird, and yeah. So it's one of those situations that could be paranormal or it could not be paranormal. Another thing that happened, again, around 1 a.m., and this was several months ago, we used to have one of those hanging lamps above our kitchen table, and at 1 a.m., I'm the only one up. My husband and kids are sleeping. You hear a loud crash, which scared the shit out of me, by the way. And I get up to go look around, and I see the lamp crash down onto the kitchen table. And again, this is one of those situations that could be paranormal, but it could also be not paranormal either, but it's strange if it's not paranormal. Because it had come out of the ceiling perfectly. It didn't leave a hole in the ceiling. And it fell because there was a little hook attached to the ceiling and it just fell through like something pushed it through. And I looked at the hook thing or the thing that kept the lamp up there and it didn't look like it was damaged at all. So it broke a few of the lamps and we had to get rid of it. But it was just strange because it shouldn't have done that because, like I said, everybody else was asleep. I was in here. And by the way, that did not wake up my kids. That's how sound sleepers my children are. But let me get into the stuff that is definitely paranormal. Now, I'm mostly going to talk about my experiences. I'll mention my son's experiences a little bit. But, so, a few years ago, I would say 3 years ago, this is before the activity really began to pick up, I was sleeping up here, actually taking a nap, And I hear someone walking a little bit downstairs. Now, here's the thing. My husband was at work and my kids were at school. I'm the only one in the house, and all the doors and stuff downstairs were locked, including the door upstairs was locked. Everything was locked, and I'm like, okay, it's just my imagination, because I'm weird like that. This is my imagination. I'm tired, and maybe I hear something, and my brain thinks it's someone walking around downstairs, so I go back to sleep. And then I hear it again, it's more clear. So, and by the way, this is one of the situations where you hope it's paranormal and not an actual person, because it would be more terrifying if an actual person was downstairs in the house with you when you know there's no one else in there. So, there was a stale baguette on the kitchen table, and I grabbed that, because if it was an intruder, I thought it would be hilarious if the headline said, "Home intruder beaten by homeowner with a stale baguette." That kind of thing. So here I am, going downstairs with a stale baguette, like a weapon, looking everywhere to see if anyone was there, and no one was there. No one was absolutely downstairs walking around. I did not find anybody. And to make sure, I came up here, looked everywhere upstairs, including the balcony, and there was no one there. And then I had another experience where, again, I was sleeping up here during the day. I was taking a nap where everybody was at school and hubby was at work. And I thought I heard walking, or I thought I heard something on the stairs. And I'm like, I checked the stairs and there was no one there, so I went back to sleep. And then I woke up when I heard this sound near the bed. Yeah, that woke me up. That scared the shit out of me. But I'm like, I have a really weird relationship with ghosts. I'm like, ghosties are acting up again. I just go back to sleep, or I just ignore it, or I talk to my friend who's had experiences in my last house about it. So, and then, let's see, what are some other interesting things? That's the interesting thing, is that most activity seems to be downstairs for some strange reason, whereas in the last house, a lot of the activity was upstairs. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else other than hearing, like, walking occasionally downstairs, even during the middle of the night. Now, that's another thing. I've heard walking downstairs in the middle of the night. Like, one time I was in the foyer near my kids' room and my room, and I heard someone walking. And I thought it was my one of my kids that woke up. You know, maybe had a nightmare, but there's nobody there. And then there's been times where I've heard walking up here, thinking it was one of the kids in Darling, and nope, it wasn't neither of them, because the kids were still in their room and my husband had left for work. So, but yeah, it's passive aggressive with me as usual. Like it was in the last house. They kept their distance from me, in a way. But with my son's a little bit different. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this in the first part, but my son, in the last house, saw a woman in their nursery. An old woman that had a walker with tennis balls on her walker. He still knows the details of this woman to this day. He saw this woman when he was like, I think 2 years old, and he still remembers her to this day. So nearly 10 years later, he still remembers her clearly. Was able to give me like a full account of what she looked like down to the details. And, he said that she looked at him and then kept walking on and then and the weird thing is, there was an old woman that was the first owner of that house, but we don't know what she looked like. And she did die in the downstairs, although we have no idea which room she died in. And it could also be his grandmother, too, even though she didn't die in the house. Well, in this house, and this is a little bit creepy, my son has said that, downstairs, he was playing downstairs, and he felt something watching him. And he looks up and he sees this boy with hair over his eyes looking at him. And he said that this kid gave him bad feelings, like he was angry or something at him. And as soon as my son turned and saw him, this kid turned around and went into my room. And, when my son said this, I went in my room to look for this little boy, but there was nobody there. And even though my room had a door, if he had been an actual person, he would have opened the door and ran out. And that door was locked still. So, and I looked through all the other downstairs rooms for this little boy, and I couldn't see anybody. He's also seen shadows. He has seen a shadow figure in my room about my height. And when he saw this, he realized I was still in the bathroom. And another time, he came downstairs and, he saw a shadow of someone doing this, brushing their teeth. And he looks in there and there's nobody in there. And he realizes that something is mimicking me, in height and my antics. Because sometimes he also said that the shadow figure was while it was brushing its teeth, it was moving side to side, which I do when I brush my teeth because I'm weird. And then several months ago, he said too, he didn't record it, unfortunately, but he was on Snapchat, and sometimes you can pick up things on Snapchat, with the filters. That's what happened to him. Something with a filter came up when there was nobody there in the room downstairs, the big room. In the same place that he saw this boy when he was playing down there. And, other than seeing shadows and stuff, he hears weird things out in the woods. When we passed this house that I mentioned that I may do a video at, on Halloween, he told me one time that he heard a woman screaming. Well, I didn't hear anything. And he does hear other things that I don't hear. He hears knocks and he hears things open, like the sauna door will open. And the weird thing is, even though he hears it, I don't hear it, which is weird because that sauna door makes a loud noise when it opens and closes. So the fact that he's hearing that and not me is very strange. So the activity got a little bit weird and aggressive several months ago. And this is just before I did the card game on my channel. When you pick up cards to answers to questions, and it's one of the ways spirits can communicate with you, supposedly, that I prefer over a freaking Ouija board. I think a week or two before I did that video, my son had tripped, I was actually upstairs near him when this happened. I hear my son fall in the foyer when I was in the kitchen, and I thought he had tripped, and he told me, "No, Mommy, someone pushed me down." And of course there's no one near him, and it wasn't his sister, because his sister wasn't in this room. So in the foyer, you can see the foyer a little bit in the background. But he was in the foyer. I was in the kitchen, which is across from this room. And no one was there that would push him down because me and my daughter and him were the only ones in the house. My husband was still at work. And he just said someone pushed him down. I'm like, oh, hell no. So, I did the card game, and I asked the spirits of the house or anywhere if they were the ones that pushed him down. Now, if you remember from the video, and I'll link it at the end of the video as well, put it in the description box, and you guys can see it yourselves. I asked the question, did you push my son down? And I got initially, don't know, which I thought was a very snarky way to reply to a question like that. And while most people wouldn't go the route I did, I didn't give a shit. And I literally called out the ghosts and said, you guys are liars. You know, answer the truth. Because I won't tolerate this shit from you guys. We can coexist with each other as long as you guys behave. And then I got the answer that I was looking for, which was no. They didn't push him down. And since then, they haven't been aggressive to him or to any of us. What has happened since then is that my son felt someone do this on his back, like gently pat him or something like that. But he hasn't been hurt or anyway. And then there's two other experiences that I forgot to mention initially with just me. I'll be listening to music on Spotify on my phone, and suddenly, you know, I have the volume all the way up, and then suddenly it sounds like someone turned it down. I've been watching my phone during the time this has happened because I'm looking at something or whatnot while listening to something on Spotify. And the thing is, usually when you turn the volume down on my phone, you see that little bar come up of the volume going up or down. I meant to do up and down, but it did up. Oh well. And that didn't come up when the volume went down on its own. And I'm like, ghosties don't like what I'm listening to. And it's done that at least 3 times. Where I've been listening to something at full volume and then suddenly something turns down the volume and there's nothing there. And, oh yeah, also, when I did the card game too. I didn't mention it in the video. I did make a little video about it, but I don't know how to splice videos together. After that video was done, when I went downstairs, the video was at 100%. Or the camera was at, not the camera, my phone, which I record my videos on, was at 100%. By the time I was done with that card game, it was 50%. So that was a massive energy drain, and I never really had that happen with anything before. And then there's another experience involving candy. Oh yeah. I'll get to that in a bit. So I'm on Skype one time, or on Discord with one of my friends talking. And she starts asking me, is there anyone there with you? And I'm like, no, why? I mean, my husband's at work and the kids are at school. Because I was by myself again. And she's like, I hear someone on your end sighing, like, and it's not you, because they're doing that over you. And I'm like, oh. And most people will get a little bit unnerved by that. I'm like, oh, ghosties are bored by what I'm saying. They can deal with it or something like that. But yeah. Like I said, I have the weirdest relationship with ghosts. So anyway, the candy part. Since we were having issues with pipes in the house, starting in early May, I thought, maybe the ghosties have something to do with it, and it's time to maybe extract them from the house. I thought a spell involving salt, going around the house 3 times, asking to remove the evil from the house, and throwing that salt in fire would have helped. But things got a little bit worse after that. Like we got more water damage, more stuff leaking, and I thought I pissed off the spirits of the house more, especially after I told them during the card game that if they behave themselves, especially towards my son, that they can coexist in the house with us. They can still remain here. And I think they felt like I broke that when I tried to do that. So I did that on Midsummer, that little spell. And then I gave the spirits a peace offering. Initially, I gave them 3 caramel candies from Weathers. And I stacked them in a way where I know how they were, so if it moves, I know that it was probably the ghosties, although I had to make sure it's not my kids either. And there's been a few times where the candies have moved on their own, but the most interesting one is that initially it got down to 2 candies, because I took one of them. And so there was just 2 candies left, and at this point there was no more of these caramels because, there was no more left. Well, next day there's another caramel candy with the 2, and I'm like, how did that get there? Because there was no more caramels left. They were gone. So where did this 3rd caramel come from? So, I'm like, okay, whatever. If the ghosties want 3 caramels there, they're going to have 3 caramels there. And then I would say 2 days later, the kids were already upstairs. I was downstairs, and I always look at this little candy pile every day. And there was still 3 candies there. So I go get ready to go upstairs and get the kids ready to go to school. I come back to the room, and there's a wrapper on the end of my bed. And it's when the wrap, and it was face down. So I just saw the white part up. I'm like, that's weird. It's a wrapper from one of the candies. And you can tell that the pile had been rearranged. Now, here's the thing. When this would have happened, I know my kids were still upstairs. My husband was at work. And I was downstairs. I would have had a shot to the stairs if the kids were coming down, and I would have heard them if they had gone in that room and get the candies. Because between the time that I was in that room and gone to the bathroom to get ready and come back, no one else was downstairs but me. And that happened. So that was really strange. Very strange indeed. And that's probably the most major thing that's happened with the candies is that. I mean, yes, there are times where the candies are slightly moved a little bit, but it's like, oh yeah, whatever. I mean, ghosties are still winning the candy and stuff. So that's all the activity that's happened in this house. Last August, the kids were with their grandmother, or with my mother-in-law, and it was just me and my husband here at home. And my husband hears a cat meowing out in the woods and wants me to investigate, which I thought was weird because I'm in here, and the bathroom is right, like, not far away from this room. And he heard the cat, but I didn't. But I'm like, sure, I'll go see what's going on with the cat. And I go in the woods where I'm hearing the meowing. I don't see anything, but I hear it loud. And I get to the place where I think it's at, and then it starts quieting down. I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's afraid. So I put cat meows on the phone to try to get to reply. And I finally got the cat to meow again. And, it sounds closer to me. And I go to it. And, it sounds like I'm right on top of it. And then all of a sudden, the sound of the meow goes from very near me to very far away in the woods. Almost like something's trying to lure me deeper into the woods. And by the time this happens, I'm near a creek. And I'm staring into the woods. And it's slowly getting dark, by the way. Like something was like, come closer, come deeper into the woods when it's very dark outside. And I did have my phone, so even if it got dark, I have a light on my phone and stuff, and I could call Darling and all that if something major was happening. But I felt like something negative was trying to lure me deeper into the woods. And I literally stood edge of that creek and stood and stared straight on, because I can sense something all of a sudden that was dark there, like watching me, trying to lure me in. And I'm like, I ain't falling for your shit, boy or girl. I ain't falling for your shit. So I stared that way, and the meowing stopped. I didn't hear it for a half hour, and then I finally turned back and stuff. But my son has said at times too that he's heard someone call for help out in the woods and stuff like that. So, and what I do think is out in the woods is an elemental, and you know, like a nature's spirit or a fae or something like that. Even in Sweden, yeah, because I don't put it past me that, you know, when a lot of fae left Ireland after they lost their war with I'm gonna botch this. Now, this is according to folklore, but when they lost when the Tuatha De Danann, which is technically the Fae, lost their war with the Malayans, it's spelled M-I-L, is it E-S-I-N-S? It was a group of humans that came from Gaul that helped defeated the Tuatha De and drove them out of Ireland, either into fairy mounds or into their own realm of fairy. But I do think a lot of them spread out, especially went to places that don't have a lot of human activity at. And of course, my house backs up to a woods, so there could be an elemental there and stuff. So who knows? But yeah, that's all the paranormal activity I've dealt with in Sweden so far. I am pretty sure there's going to be a part 3 sometime in the future. But yeah, that's today's video. Well, y'all, if you like this video, smash the like button. If you subscribe, I'll be absolutely delighted, and I'll see you all later. Toodles!